Welcome to the Photographer Show, where we talk to you, the everyday photographers in the photo focus community, about your love of photography and dig into some of the fun, nerdy stuff we all love about the art and craft of photography. My name is Scott Wenkibowitz, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Lori. Hey, Lori.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Awesome. For a quick note for everybody watching live in the webinar or on YouTube, please share in the chat where you are watching from. We all love to see where you're tuning in from. It's always fun. And 9 times out of 10, it's New Jersey somehow. I find. I don't know why. The Photographer Show is presented by Tamron, so be sure to check out instant savings on select Tamron lenses for your DSLR or mirrorless camera. Go to tamron-usa.com to learn more about their incredible lenses. Today, we're talking with Jacqueline Lant. Welcome to the Photographer Show, Jacqueline. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So can you share with everybody who's watching either live right now or watching the recording later, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I started photography a number of years ago now with a film camera. Took a couple of photos of my children, which I adored. Obviously, the cost of developing takes its toll on all sorts of things. So when I switched over to digital, it became obviously a lot more accessible for me because obviously you take more photographs. So I started with my first Canon because I use Canon all the time. Sorry, for those who don't. And I got a 400D to start with and just a 18 to 55 lens. Took a few photos. I had a good tutor as well who introduced me to bird photography. And basically that's my passion, is bird photography. Wildlife of all sorts. I've done a Kenya trip on one occasion. I loved it and I can't wait to go back. But on the whole, I'm quite lucky because my husband owns he's got a little boat. So we go down the river and there's always storks about and all sorts of raptors and all sorts of birds and cormorants and that. So we actually join our passions together, which is good.
Nice, nice. And you're located where right now?
Southwest of France, okay. If I get it out. Near Pau. It's actually not far from Biarritz as well, so it's near the coast. It's not too bad. We've got the coast and the mountains, so we're lucky.
Nice.
That's really, really great that you've literally got a boat to go on and just explore the world. And yeah, 1 mile downstream and you can see a whole bunch of different wildlife that's not going to be where you started from. So that's plus just the fact that you're on a boat just makes things more exciting. It's different than walking to your destination or getting in the car and going. It's like a whole nother experience. So it's pretty cool that you get to do that.
Oh, it is. It's lovely. And to be fair, because my husband is really, really amenable to my photography, shall we say, he's quite happy to go out on the boat and find bird spots for me. So we anchor up in the middle of the river where the nests usually are for the storks, and there's 2 black-winged kites there a lot as well, so we do photograph them a lot. So I'm lucky. I have a really good husband for that.
It helps. It does help.
Yeah. And cheers to the husbands.
Yeah, same for the mountains. When we go to the mountains, it's him that actually says, right, come on, take your camera, let's go to the mountains, let's take some photos in the mountains. And he points them out. He might see something that sometimes I don't see, and it's like, oh, that looks a good photo. I say, oh yeah, well done. I'll take that one.
That's interesting.
It's so good that he's encouraging for this art that you love to do. So that's fantastic. And encouraging in more than just one way, whether it's getting on the boat and going somewhere or even pointing things out. It's really nice to see.
Well, it is. He
Yeah.
came home with a 500mm lens not so long ago, so he's very encouraging.
So he totally understands what's going on.
He does. But I'm just in the process of changing actually all my lenses to, because I've just bought a mirrorless camera, so I'm in the process of changing to RF lenses now. So
Nice.
So he's going to take me to the photography shop again.
Now I have to question my wife's encouragement, because she never brought me a 500mm
Right?
lens.
No.
You obviously didn't talk nice enough to her.
Yeah. So quick word. I don't know if anybody who watching this watched my previous video that I did with Ken Hubbard, but I'm still suffering from allergies, so I'm going to stay muted as much as possible, because I wind up coughing up pretty dramatically, and I don't want that on this video. So real quick, before we dive into the first question, for those joining us in the live webinar, or if you're on YouTube, please be sure to ask questions. If you're in the webinar, use the Q&A module, and Lori and I will be monitoring that and getting to your questions, as we go through this. And if you're in the YouTube, then there is the live chat. So that is there for you, where you can go ahead and ask questions as well, and we will get to those when we can. So my first question to you, which you actually covered already, but if you can just sort of restate it, and I'm actually going to expand on it. The first question we ask every guest is, what was your first camera? But I'm going to ask you, what was your first camera, and what is the exact camera that you're about to switch to? Because you just said you're going to mirrorless. So if you can share, what was your first, and what is the camera you're going to now?
The first camera, as in digital camera, was my Canon 400D, which actually introduced me to Canon. To be fair, it's a beautiful camera, and it worked really, really well, and I loved it. However, I then progressed on, went to a 50D, a 7D, a 1D Mark IV, 1DX Mark II, and I am now on the Canon R5, which is what I've just brought, which is the mirrorless. However, I'm now going to sell all my cameras except for my mirrorless, because I want to stick with mirrorless. So I'm looking at now maybe I'm obviously going to stick with the R5, but I may go for the R6 as well, or the RP. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure which one. Depends how good an offer they give me on all my other cameras and lenses, to be honest.
So you can trade them in, or get money to pay for the new stuff.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
If you don't like Canon equipment, you should just tell Canon you don't like their equipment. I mean, I'm just kidding. That's actually, I've done the same thing with Nikon. I built up all these Nikon equipment over the years, and then just recently fully switched to mirrorless and sold my bodies, and now I'm trying to sell and swap out for the original F-mount DSLR lenses to the new Z-mount mirrorless lenses. So I'm right there with you, but on the Nikon side of things. So it's really nice to see that you're taking the right approach by slowly making that switch, by sell off what you can, replace it, sell off what you can, replace it, that kind of stuff.
To be fair, for me as well, I went out not so long back. There's some gorges in the mountains not far from here to photograph the vultures, and they're really high up on the rocks. And I had my 1DX Mark II with an extender, 1.4 extender, with my 500mm Canon lens f4, and it's just too heavy for me. It's like I'm really, really struggling with it. And so I'm going to go for the 100 to 500 on the Canon. Hopefully, I haven't tried it, but I've seen lots of reports. It seems to be a good lens. I'm just hoping, because to be fair, the cost of the 500 is, we bought it secondhand, so I was quite lucky on that. But I just want to make really the most of what I've got to change over to mirrorless, and to still be able to get the photos I can get with them. So
Right.
When you're doing your bird photography or wildlife photography, are you always handheld? Do you use a tripod? Do you use a monopod? What's your sort of situation go as far as stability goes?
I'd say 99.9% of the time I'm handheld, because I think you've got more movement. If I was by a river,
right,
and I knew there was like ducks on the water or something like that, grebes, something, I would probably use a tripod, because obviously it's better. You can stay on the ground, you can stay low. but to actually take photos of birds in flight, you haven't got hope in hell with a tripod, to be quite honest with you, especially on a boat. It's just not possible.
Yeah. Have you thought about a monopod? Because at that point, you don't have to hold your equipment. You just have to sort of balance it, so to speak.
Stabilize it. Yeah.
I have got a monopod, but I'm not really that keen on it. I will be honest. I'm not a big fan of monopods.
That's interesting. That's really
Doesn't
interesting.
it-
I
doesn't
don't
it-
currently own one, but
No, I don't either. To me, it still makes me feel like I'm constrained. Even just the monopod is constraining because I want to pick my camera up and do that, and it's going to be,
Well, the worst of it is with a monopod, because you've actually got this stick stuck on your lens, if you like.
Right.
As you go to actually lift to take something in the air, you're actually lifting not only the camera and the lens, but the monopod as well.
Right.
It just makes it more awkward. And if you go like that and turn, you'll probably take something out. So it's not advisable.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So what ways do you use to learn more about photography?
Basically the internet for an awful lot. Obviously I run a photography club, which you've mentioned, and yes, I do talk to other people, but I find a lot of the people that I have in my group are beginners. So it's me searching for ideas all the time. It's really, really hard work and tiring, and you are forever trying to come up with something new. I mean, I've seen a photo I want to do, which I've tried to actually start today, and it's of two glasses. Now, somebody may be able to help me with this. It's two glasses, two plastic glasses, wine glasses, and you have them strung up in the air, and you have obviously different coloured water in them, and you tap them together so you have the flow of the colours.
Right.
But can I hang those glasses? No. They just go plop. So if anybody's got any ideas on how to hang a glass, please tell me.
That's an interesting one.
funny.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, do, because
I
it
can
really.
find it.
I've looked on YouTube. I cannot find it anywhere.
Or post something in the community about what you're trying to do and see if anybody else in there has done it. Maybe somebody's tried it.
It's trouble is
some
having
ideas.
the stem on the glass as well.
Right.
You're trying to. Obviously, you've got to support the glass.
Right.
As soon as you lift it, it tips. It just doesn't seem to work. So there must be a way, because I know somebody's done it.
Right.
So looking through all of your work, and we're going to get to 3 of your photos in a little bit, but looking through all your work, you've photographed a lot of different things. You've got some landscapes. You've got obviously the birding photos, which you've talked about. You even have some insect photos. There's what I believe are some composites as well. So I'm curious, if you had a choice between only photographing birds or only photographing insects for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Birds.
Birds.
No contest with birds.
But so when you photograph insects, what is your go-to lens for that subject
100
matter?
mm macro, 2.8 IS.
Nice. And do you leave the IS on or you turn that off?
If I'm handheld, it's on, and I quite often actually do use a macro light as well on it. So that if it's a bit windy, because we do get quite a lot of wind around here, if it's a bit windy, you can freeze the action. And that's actually what I'm doing tomorrow with my photo club, because it's our first day back tomorrow after COVID.
Wow.
So
Nice.
yeah, so I'm quite
Yay.
excited about that. Obviously, there's going to be some people that won't be coming along because they're a little bit worried about it and all that. But yeah, my 100 mm macro, and sometimes, as I say, I do use a ring light with it, because you do get, obviously with insects, they move a lot. You get a better photo, in my opinion.
Right. Do you use a ring flash or just a regular
ring flash?
A flash.
I've got a ring flash I use with it. I mean, if I do still life macro photography, I always use a tripod, 100%. I will use a tripod. For water splashes, anything like that, I will always, because I've got the Pluto trigger, and that works really, really well. But you've obviously got to be on a tripod for that. So
yeah. So I mentioned a little in the last question that I've noticed some composites in your portfolio. Do you often make composites, or is that more of an experimental thing right now?
It's experimental more than anything, because I've got 3 grandchildren, and I'm a member. I pay actually for a membership for another site that I use. Whether I can mention it or not, you know, you say if I can or not. And yeah, it's Solana, which is an American company. Grace, she is absolutely brilliant, and I pay monthly for her. You get so many things with her. You get loads of tuition, which is where I learn a lot of my composites from. You get overlays, background, textures, loads and loads of stuff. And of course, with my grandchildren, I'm trying to just do something magical really for them. And I'm not a portrait photographer, I will be honest, but I would love to be doing more portraiture. But again, we've bought portraiture staff, lighting for Photo Club, but we're not allowed to do anything indoors at the moment because of COVID. So that will be a future thing that we will do.
Nice. So just want to take a short break to remind everybody that Photofocus has its own community. Head over to photofocus.com, click on the community link in the menu to join exclusive conversations and events. And we also want to say thank you to Tamron for sponsoring this show. So that's really appreciated as well. And for those live in the webinar, please use that Q&A module and ask a question or two, so that at the end, when we get through all the photos, the 3 photos we're going to look at, we can get to your questions. And if you're watching the live chat, the YouTube live stream, then you can ask your questions in the live chat there. I have one more question before we dive into your 3 photos. I already asked your question about what lens you use for photographing insects. Up until you had this 500 millimeter lens, because I think you said that's fairly new, right?
Yeah, about a year old.
Okay, so is that your go-to bird lens now? And if so, what was your go-to lens before you had that?
It is my go-to lens, as long as I'm not running out my door because I've seen something in the sky that I want to photograph really quickly. And then that'll be the 100 to 400 I will use. So I do use 2 quite often. But
nice.
Obviously,
and you said and you said that the RF, the mirrorless version, is 100 to 500.
Yep.
Wow. And what's the aperture on that one?
I think it's 4.5, but I'm not 100% on that. But obviously, having a fixed lens has got to be better than having a zoom lens.
Yeah, of course.
However,
but there's also
at the moment, with the cost of the RF lenses, if you were to buy 400, is a lot of money at the moment. So unless we win the lottery, I don't think I'll be having one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's share your photos. Just let me know when you see it.
I can see them.
All right. So I picked 3 different types of photos from your portfolio, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to show that, you know, you can really specialize in bird photography, but there's no reason why you can't do other things, right? And all 3 of these are really good. Like they're all really good. This first one really stood out to me because there's something to be said for a winter scene that has this one point of subject matter that really stands out. And you might think it's that rocky mountain, you know, in the background, but obviously it's the house and it's half buried in snow. So it's just so interesting. With that, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about this photo.
Well, really strange actually, this photo, because we pass this house often. It's obviously it's a little shed in the mountains that the Bergers use, which is the people that obviously have their sheep in the mountains. And if you're a walker and you're out in the mountains, you get stuck, then it's somewhere you can go as well. And we pass this a lot, but we pass it when we're in the car driving, because you can't stop anywhere near there unless you're out actually parked and you're walking. So this is actually taken from the car when the car's moving along. So I was quite lucky to actually get this sharp, if you like. So I was quite pleased with this. But obviously I've added a little bit of saturation to it, because the windows were, the shutters are blue, but they're obviously a little bit brighter now. Sharpened it up. Normal levels and curves I use as well for Photoshop. But obviously the composition, obviously being in the lower part of the house is obviously the main attraction for the photo. And that's basically, I knew that house was coming along when we were driving, so I prepared myself ready to take the photo. And that's what I've ended up with. And luckily enough, in my opinion, there's still a lot of cloud in the sky, and I think that actually adds to the photo.
Yeah, I agree.
It balances it out so that not everything is over on the left hand, on the one side.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous shot. Absolutely gorgeous.
There's two elements of deep texture, the rock and the house. And there's two elements of puffy texture, the clouds and the snow. So it really is a cool balance of both ends of the spectrum. Which is nice. You mentioned you did this in Photoshop. Do you often use Photoshop versus something else? What's your go-to software for editing your work?
Lightroom and Photoshop. And I've just actually started using Exposure 6 as well. And I quite like that because Sue Bryce uses that, and I'm a great admirer of her work. Her work's fantastic. And I noticed she used it, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. So I'm actually on the trial period at the moment, but I'm pretty sure I will pay for it and I will have it.
Cool.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I use it for landscape, mind you, but I will always use Photoshop, always. So that's with Photoshop, definitely. I usually import into Lightroom and then use Photoshop and Lightroom together, always. So.
Nice. Yeah, the beautiful thing about that is they work like siblings, because they are siblings.
Oh yeah, exactly. They work together.
Yeah.
That's what they're made for, isn't it? They work together.
Yep.
But then you can use other things with it, which is good.
Yep. So this this one is so interesting as well. First of all, it looks like you can see my mouse, right? If I move the mouse.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like it doesn't get much more perfect timing for placement and stuff for this. Like, what the heck is going?
Two-headed, right? He's two-headed.
Yeah, it does look a bit strange, that, but
yeah. So that is so interesting. But then it also looks like this one is just waving him on, like, get out of here, like, shoo, get out of my way.
He looks like the conductor, I think.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right.
Yep. And then the reflections are so good in this too. I love that the reflections have the ripples from the moving water. It's just an overall just a fantastic photo, top to bottom. It just perfect timing on this. So yeah, you want to talk about this one?
Real as well. They're not added in afterwards. So, and it was a beautiful day there. It was in the not far, well, probably a few hours from here. Now we went for a weekend because we got a camper van as well. So we went away for a weekend, and it was just it's the area where all the flamingos are. So I've sort of said for a while now I'd like to go down there. So we went down there, and that was the intention, to capture the flamingos. And to start with, there just didn't seem to be any, and I thought, oh gosh, this is a waste of time. But they arrived, and I was so pleased. But I do want to go back down there and get, because you've got a lot more wildlife down there as well that I'd like to get that I haven't got. So watch your space, because there will be more arriving, I'm sure.
Nice. Yeah, I really love this photo, and I actually have family who's obsessed with flamingos, so I'm gonna share the photo with them so they can see it as well. They'll probably get a kick out of it.
Have I not put any others up of the flamingos?
I think there's additional in your portfolio. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's some other ones where there's one of a single flamingo, I think, as well. I think I actually prefer that to that one. If I was to have chosen, I'd have chosen the other one.
I'm pretty sure Scott chose this one because that one looks like it has two heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't even see the other one's legs.
No, you can't.
It's just so funny.
Yeah, it's a bit like something out of I don't know, Alice in Wonderland or something.
Yeah.
Dr. Dolittle.
and that's the amazing thing about art in general, is like you would have picked a different flamingo for a different reason. Me, I picked this one for really two reasons. One is the double-headed flamingo, and two is the conductor. I just but
Yeah, no, it's a great.
everybody has their
shot.
preferences, which is great. So,
Exactly.
all right. The last one I picked is one of the composites.
It is
Right?
indeed. That's just a
So-
playground.
I know, but it's so fun. This is such a fun photo. And the colors are extremely vibrant. The sun flare coming in just plays so nicely with it. It's definitely something out of a fairy tale.
Mhm.
And I thought it'd be nice to share something that was just a fun photo. And so I'm hoping you could share some like why this, how it came to be, stuff like that.
To be fair, this actually started off with, I took some photos of the dog. I was testing because I had last week I had to do photos of children because I work in a school, and they're doing Mother's Day gifts, and they asked me to do a photo of each child in one class. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And I wanted to test my lighting, so I thought, right, I'll take some photos of the dog. So our dog Taco, photos of him, and I thought, oh, that's quite a nice photo. What can I do with that? And I'm obviously trying to improve the composition photos and all that. So I thought, right, I'll have a go, and I'll put him in one of these backdrops from Samarana. And so the bridge and the flowers in the background is a background. However, he obviously is my photo. The owl is an overlay. The crown he is wearing is an overlay. The tulips on both sides at the front are overlays, and so is the sun flare. So there's an awful lot added to that photo. I'm not sure you would have actually, maybe you might have picked out that the tulips were added. I'm not sure. The sunflower, I think you can tell's added, and I think you can tell that the crown and the owl's added. But I mean, I was just pleased with it as it's just to play around to just improve what I'm doing, to be quite honest with you.
And that's the best way to learn how to do that kind of thing is to do it and see what happens when you do stuff.
And I always use a Wacom pen. I never use a mouse, and I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But I always use that, and I find it so much easier. I really do.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I didn't realize that the tulips were not in real, in the photo. I could tell the crown, I could tell the owl. I'm curious though. So you mentioned the bridge itself and the scene in the background is a background. That's not an actual bridge. So your dog was on a green screen?
No, just on the floor down here. Just down here on the floor.
Oh, and you just cut her out. You masked her out.
Yeah. I mean, with Photoshop, you just select subject, and basically it does it for you anyway, doesn't it, nowadays? So it's so easy. The blending in and the colouring, because obviously you've got to make sure the colour's correct and it balances with the background and everything else. I find that really difficult. I will be honest, really difficult. But
well, you did a really good job on this one because it looks like he was on the bridge in the same, all the tones are even across the whole image.
And the shadow
works. Yeah.
Because obviously you've got to have a shadow under him. So you have to paint in the shadow. So you have to use layers or curves or whatever, however you decide to do your dodge and burn, you have to do it, and you have to put a shadow under him. Otherwise he just looks like he's floating in the air.
Yep.
So I was pleased with it, and but it is just a play around.
Yep. Yeah. And
that's awesome.
To me, that's what it's all about, because in the end, you playing around with doing a composite like this is only going to help everything else you do anyway. You're getting better using your tools, right?
Yeah.
So, so playing around is what it's all about. All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I don't see any questions yet in the Q&A.
No.
Anything on YouTube?
No.
Nothing. Okay. So, the last question I have for you then, since there's no other questions asked, unless Lori, you have any questions that you want to ask?
I was bad this week. Usually I do them ahead of time, but we interact pretty much in the community quite a bit. Jackie's pretty active in the community, so we get to interact quite a bit there. But I'm just jealous of where she lives by the mountains there in the snow.
Yeah. Come and visit.
I'm ready. I just told Scott before we started recording, I'm so ready to go somewhere that it's killing me.
I can't wait. Oh,
I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's starting to plan their trips. I have my future sister-in-law was supposed to go to Mexico with her brother and two other family members, and she was flying out the day after, and she got a call from her brother saying, "Don't come. We are stuck. There's um, protests going on, and we are literally stuck in a hotel. We can't even get to where we're going." So they were stuck for like
Yikes.
4 days in a hotel where they were not supposed to be in Mexico.
Wow.
And so travel right now is interesting. That is for
Well,
sure.
last year I had a photography holiday booked to go to Greece to pelican photographs and obviously other bits and pieces as well. It was obviously cancelled due to COVID, or put back anyway. So I'm supposed to be going in August this year. However, because of my work, I can't actually go to Greece because I've got to go a different time of the year. So I'm actually going to Romania to photograph Dracula's castle.
Ooh, that'll be
Ooh.
awesome.
Yeah, and bears and all sorts of things.
Nice.
So I can't wait for that now, but I'm hoping it goes ahead. I really do. So
Yeah.
we shall see. But
Let's hope so.
That sounds lots of fun. Be sure to get some background photos for potential
Right, of the
composites
castle. There you
too.
go.
yeah,
That would be
definitely
neat.
Dracula's castle. I can take my grandchildren photos and put them in the castle.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, they were there with me.
Well, I've got a neighbour here actually who loves. He dresses up. He has all these really weird costumes and puts what are they called, lentils, stuff, things you put in your eye. I can't remember what the English.
Contact lenses.
Contact lenses.
They're contact lenses. He puts them in and they're green and black.
Oh my gosh.
He's got really long hair, so he wants me to photograph him. And I said, well, I can't with COVID, but once it's all passed, I shall be photographing. So that would be interesting.
That'll be
Nice.
fun too. Another good way to practice for your portraits.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do want to do more portraiture, so hopefully we shall see. We shall see.
So before we wrap up, can you share one tip for photographers about a technique or about equipment, about anything you want to share?
I think probably the biggest tip, well, there's two things really, but they probably go hand in hand. One thing I do say to my photo club group, when they're doing wildlife photography or movement, any kind of movement, because obviously a lot of them are beginners, and I know everybody doesn't agree with this, and I will get to my point, sorry. But the best thing I think for people to actually do is to put their ISO on automatic. And the reason I say this is because you can then set your, if you have your camera on manual, you can then set your aperture, you can set your shutter speed, and if you put your ISO on automatic, 9 times out of 10 you won't miss that photo. You'll get that photo. And to me, that's actually, sometimes a bit of grain in a photo doesn't hurt, especially with the noise reduction you can use in Photoshop and all the other things now. So really, ISO automatic when you do any kind of movement is quite often a good tip, I think.
And on top of that, some noise isn't a bad thing, but also the newer cameras in particular, the digital noise is getting more realistic to film grain every single year when they come out with new cameras. The sensors are so good that a higher ISO isn't a terrible thing like it used to be 10 years ago.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
No, it's not. And also with Photoshop now, if you import, if you shoot in RAW, which I do, if you import your photo into RAW into Photoshop, you can actually double your pixels anyway. There's a way of doing it. I've done that, and it actually really, I mean, it's to explain it, I'd have to refresh it and go through it all, but it is a really good way of not losing any digital, any of your photo. Really, keep all your pixels, and if you want to actually print large, it's a good option. But it's time consuming, but it does work because I've tried it.
Yeah. Cool. I think the feature your super resolution is what
That's it.
that newer. Yeah, newer one. If you go to photofocus.com and search super resolution, you'll see an article I did comparing super resolution to Topaz resize.
Okay, and?
It's not Topaz resize, Topaz gigapixel.
Yeah.
And you'll see that they're similar tasks. One is far superior. I'll let you see which one you think is far
I'll have a
superior.
look at that now.
So with that, that's a great tip. I definitely strongly recommend anybody who's not only worrying about movement, but in general, as you're starting to learn about how to use manual stuff on your camera, auto ISO would be one of those last things that you would want to turn off, right? Get used to everything else, get a feel for everything else, like shutter speeds and apertures before you start thinking about what is ISO doing for me. So great advice.
Definitely.
And shoot in RAW as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
please, everybody.
Seriously, when I first started shooting, I just went back looking for some images for something in particular, and they were shot in JPEG. When I first got my first digital camera, I was shooting JPEG because I didn't know any different at that time until somebody was like, "Why are you shooting like this?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Nobody told me.
Lori.
I wish I would have known, because some of those images now I'm like, oh, I can't really do much with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can a little, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. There's not.
I mean, there are tools to convert JPEGs to RAWs, but you still don't get the full effect.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I mean, the AI tools, like, the Topaz has a whole lot of AI tools that could do different things, and that's one of them. JPEG to RAW is one of their AI tools, and it rebuilds it as a RAW using artificial intelligence, but still, it's not a RAW file.
The actual,
right?
It's not the original RAW file. Yeah.
It hasn't got all the information you need.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fair enough.
So this was a great conversation. I love looking at your photos. And I can't wait till more people see this, the recording of this, and get to check it out as well. So thank you for joining Lori and I today to share everything with us.
It was great. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
So with that, we're going to roll to the outro.